Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Not just that, Krishna says, Manmala, bring your mind to me, but then Krishna says, Mad Bhakta, because it's not just action and attention, but it's also intention. It's the devotion, it's the love, it's the heart that you bring to the activity that also makes a difference. So, therefore, we talked about how devotional service is all of these three things. And why are we discussing devotion in the three modes of nature? Because devotion is pure, but our intention may not always be pure. Our intention and our attention may be compromised. And if it is, then even though we're doing the action of devotional service, the necessary fruit won't come about. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Bahu Janma Kare Jadi Shravana Kirtan Tabutana Paye Krishna Pade Prema Dhan. Bahu Janma, for many lifetimes you can do Shravan and Kirtan. But Tabutana Paye Krishna Pade Prema Dhan, you may not get Krishna Prem. Why? I'm doing Shravan and Kirtan. I've been doing 10 years, 20 years. What to say? You can say I've been doing many lifetimes. But that does not qualify you unless the attention and the intention is there. When these three things are there, then love comes. And we explained about in the Bhagavatam how all the traditional ways in which we see higher and lower are thrown out of the window. Because what really counts is who has love. If someone thinks a sannyasi by default is higher than a grihastha, then what story can we refer them to? If someone thinks demigods are higher than demons, what story do we? If we think men are higher than women, what story? If we think brahmanas are higher than those of lower birth, Sutta Goswami. If we think the elders are always more advanced than the youngers, or Prahlad. And if we think those of civilized, royal, aristocratic background are higher than those seemingly simple workers, then Red Bharat. See? So it doesn't matter. All that matters is how much love that you have. Therefore, the constant prayer of the devotee is, when will I have some love? Kaviraj Goswami says, Prema dhana vina vyartha daridra jivan dasa kori vetan more deha prema dhan. Prema dhana vina vyartha. If I am devoid of prema, daridra jivan, then you must understand I'm a poor soul. Dasakori, therefore Krishna, make me your servant. Vetan more, and I only want one salary. Deha prema dhan. Just give me some love. May I have some love for you. But those who are practicing devotional service in the three modes of nature, that love won't come about. We talked about how the modes of nature are all around us in all of these things, but the modes of nature are also within us. And one of the things that the modes of nature can also taint is our own devotional service. And so we talked about how these three modes of devotional service are there, told about in these three stories of the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we talked about in this purport how Srila Prabhupada talks about how there's 81 types of devotional service. There are three modes, there are 9 processes of devotional service, and where does the other 3 come from to make 81? Within each mode there are different categories, isn't it? So we talked about how in ignorance you can do devotional service with these different passion, goodness, with these different qualities. And so there are 81 types of bhakti. This is known as saguna bhakti. Saguna means with material quality. If this is saguna bhakti, then what is pure bhakti known as? Nirguna bhakti. There's only one type of nirguna bhakti, that is anya bhilashita shanyam. All other desire, all other selfish motivation is zero. It's not so simple that we are just in one mode or the other, because the modes are constantly in flux, but we can still learn something from all of these modes, because we will see that in all of these there's some tinge. Maybe today we will see a little bit of ourselves in some of these. So this was the description in ignorance, this was the description in passion, and this was the description in goodness. Okay? So today we are going to discuss devotional service in the mode of ignorance. Here is a very, very famous picture. This is the picture of Daksha. Daksha had been cursed that you, because of your misconduct, you will be decapitated, and later on you will only be revived, but you will receive the head of a goat. And later on, when Daksha did this, he prayed to Shiva. What is this story? This story is given in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. When Brahma wanted to procreate, he failed many times. Management is like that. Hardly ever it works the first time. So Brahma, the universal manager, it did not work first time, because he asked the Kumaras, can you procreate? They said, no, we are brahmacharis for our whole life. We will not do. So Brahma became frustrated. Shiva came from his eyebrows because of his anger. That procreation was not healthy for the universe. So he said, okay, you stop as well, you don't do. Later on, when Brahma wanted to create, ultimately the progeny came from Svayam Bhagavan Manu. And Svayam Bhagavan Manu had 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti and Prashuti. So now the narrations from the 4th and 5th canto are dealing with the 3 daughters and the 2 sons of Svayam Bhagavan Manu. So in the beginning of the 4th canto, we hear about Prashuti. Prashuti was one of the daughters of Svayam Bhagavan Manu, and she married Daksha. Daksha, the word Daksha means expert. He was expert in many, many things. And Daksha and Prashuti married. And Daksha and Prashuti married, and they had a daughter, and their daughter's name was Sati. So Sati was very beautiful, very qualified, very chaste in all ways. And then ultimately it came to the point of her getting married. The dream of every parent. Who will be the knight in shining armor? Who will be? Make sure his height is just perfect. Make sure he has the right academic qualification. Make sure he's from a good aristocratic background. Make sure he's beautiful, Prince Charming. And in the end, Sati married who? Shiva. Now, that was difficult. She was coming from such an aristocratic background. She knew the caliber of Shiva. But still, Daksha in his heart, he reluctantly allowed her to marry Shiva. But in his heart, he couldn't handle it. He was thinking, he's covered with ashes, he looks in all kinds of ways, he's always associating with all kinds of entities. Daksha was not happy. But Daksha was also envious of Shiva. Because Daksha, he was an expert, and one of the things he was expert in is doing so many sacrifices. There are some people, they kind of always like to do many sacrifices, we've got to bring the blessings, so many sacrifices. So Daksha was a little bit like that. So he was doing so many sacrifices, so many yagyas, but still Shiva was always being glorified more than him. Because it doesn't matter how much piety you do, fame always follows the Vaishnav. So Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, Shiva was the highest Vaishnav. So Daksha was always a little bit against Shiva he was envious of him because he was always glorified by all the eminent personalities, and he thought his daughter could do better than Shiva. So what happened is, once there was a great sacrifice, and Marichi, Daksha, they had all come together to perform this sacrifice. So everyone had assembled. It was a great gathering. The Yagya Kunds were ready, the Brahmanas were there, the most eminent personalities in the universe were attending. And on the 2 seats of honor were Brahma and Shiva. Now Daksha, he was kind of the head of the sacrifice, because remember, that was his thing, doing many sacrifices. So as everyone was getting ready, then Daksha walked in. Now as soon as Daksha walked in, everyone stood up. It's said that if a great personality walks into the room and you don't stand up, some of your life is lost. So everyone stood up, except 2 personalities. One was Brahma and the other one was Shiva. Now the nature of someone who's steeped in ignorance is that they don't see how much has come to them, they always see what didn't come to them. So everyone, all these amazing people in the sacrificial arena, they all stood up. But Brahma and Shiva didn't stand up, and that's where his attention immediately went. This is the nature of someone who is in ignorance. They don't see what has come, they always see what's missing. Now Daksha, in his mind, he began to calculate. Brahma has not stood up, but that's okay. Brahma is my superior. Brahma is my grandfather. So it's okay. He's on the level of my grandfather, no problem if he doesn't stand up. But Shiva's my son-in-law. And this Shiva, remember, already he had so much envy and a little bit of animosity towards him. This is another lesson. When you already have envy and animosity to someone, any small thing they do, you will amplify it like this. Isn't it? Already, if in your mind, if you have some bad feeling towards someone, then it's almost as though immediately you begin looking. Any little thing they do is a problem. So Daksha couldn't take it. And he began blaspheming Shiva. He began speaking all kinds of violent words. He said, I knew I should not have given my daughter to you. What kind of personality you are? You have no culture. And like this. Shiva was very, very humble. But then what happened is the followers of Shiva, they couldn't deal with Daksha's torment. And therefore they began to counter-curse Daksha. And then when Daksha's followers and Brigu was a good friend of Daksha, when they heard the followers of Shiva curse Daksha, then they began to counter-curse. So like this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then finally it came to the point where Shiva just left. And Daksha also left in frustration. And somehow or other, even though they both left, the sacrifice went on. Later on, what happened is that Brahma, he initiated a different sacrifice. And he made Daksha again the head of the sacrifice. This was some time later. But because the animosity between Shiva and Daksha, it was like a cold war. It had gone on now for some time. So now when Daksha had organized this sacrifice, Shiva said, I will not go. Once was enough. Once bitten, twice shy. So Shiva said, I'm not going now this time. But Sati, she wanted to go. Because it's woman's nature. When there is a social event, when everyone is dressing up, when it's nice, everyone will be there. They want to go. So Sati said, no, everyone will be there. My friends, my family, all the people I grew up with, all my well-wishers will be there, and we'll be able to have a nice social gathering. And Shiva said, if you go, it will end up in disaster. And of course, it's a long history, and I won't go through the whole story, but it did end up in disaster. Because Sati went there, and all of the followers of Daksha, none of them even greeted her, because they were afraid. Daksha and Shiva have a problem. Shiva is Sati's husband, and if we show some favor towards Sati, then Daksha will think we're siding with Shiva, so we don't want to even go there. So no one greeted her. So she felt so bad, and then later on she self-immolated herself, and this is where the rite of Sati comes from. So this is the story which is given in the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, the first story to talk about devotional service in the mode of ignorance. Why? Because Daksha was doing devotional service, he was doing sacrifice, but what kind of devotional service he was doing? You can repeat after me. Abhisandhaya yohim sham Dambam matsaryam evava Samrambhi binadrik bhavam Mai kuryat satamasaha. So now what we're going to do is look at devotional service in the mode of ignorance and look at how some of those characteristics may also enter into the way we perform devotional service. When we look at Daksha, his devotion was tainted with envy because Shiva was being glorified more than him. From the beginning he was envious. Now this is characteristic of someone in the mode of ignorance, that they are envious when others are doing well, when others are recognized, when others are being credited and praised. They just can't handle it. It's just too much. But if you think about it, this is complete ignorance, because if someone is being praised by Krishna, by the devotees, it means they're being pleased, they're pleasing Krishna. So if you are displeased that someone is pleasing Krishna, then what that basically means is you're displeased that Krishna is pleased. What can be more in ignorance in devotion than that? Therefore, if we are envious of someone who's doing well in their spiritual journey, if we're envious because someone is being recognized by the Lord, by the devotees, there cannot be anything more in ignorance than that. And therefore sometimes we find shades of this envy coming into our own life, our own heart. This is considered devotional service in ignorance, characterized by Daksha's envy of Shiva. Not just that, Dambam. Daksha was very proud. Everyone stood up. He was getting so much respect. But for a proud person, it doesn't matter how much respect they get. If someone disrespects them, immediately, when you're proud, even a small thing is amplified. Wasn't Indra the same? I mean, Indra was the god of heavens. He was getting millions and millions of sacrifices from all kinds of individuals over the three worlds. But when Krishna, one small boy in one small village in Vraj, said, no, don't worship Indra, that was too much. Forget all the three worlds of sacrifice. So when we're proud, then what happens is a small thing, we amplify it, we make it so big. This was again Daksha. He signified this. So sorry, I said envy is Matsarya, pride is Dambam, and Himsam, isn't it? Then ultimately he was violent. He was violent towards Shiva, because ultimately in his heart and mind he was looking at the demise of Shiva. He was looking that Shiva basically be killed. First, Daksha killed him by his words, and ultimately Daksha wanted to kill him in further ways as well. So you may look and you say, this is a bit hard, not that bad. Samrambhi means anger. When there is devotional, so much anger. This is also in ignorance, because krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger you lose your intelligence. So Krishna or Kapila Dev says, Mai kuryat satamasaha. So now we have to think deeply that maybe some of these things are entering into our devotional service. We have to be very honest. We have to be very reflective. We have to face the demons. And we have to say, Matsarya Bhakti, let's begin there, envy. Is it difficult? They say sometimes more difficult than feeling compassion in someone else's distress is to feel genuinely happy in someone else's success, isn't it? If someone's struggling, it's still easier to find in your heart some compassion for them. But when someone's doing well, can we be genuinely happy? This means you have removed all Matsarya Bhakti, or I put Bhakti in inverted commas, all enviousness from the heart. So Matsarya must be removed, and we have to be very, very careful. I've given some points here. First thing is, in our devotional service, we have to be very empowering and very, very encouraging. The nature of envy is we always want to keep other people down. But Vaishnav means always encourage, always empower, always bring them up. Isn't it like one devotee came to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Srila Prabhupada, there are 12 Mahajans, I think you're the 13th. Prabhupada said, very good, you become the 14th. So that was Prabhupada, become a pure devotee. You can do it. Prabhupada was so encouraging, so empowering. Just think about this. In 1966, Srila Prabhupada started Back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada said, let us produce this magazine. My spiritual master, 1 article. Me, 1 article. And one of you, 1 article. Now that, if you think about it, is completely amazing. Because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada are complete Mahabhagavats. But Srila Prabhupada was so empowering and encouraging that he said, all of you should just write with us side by side. Your realizations are also valid. Your contribution is also valued. And in that way, Srila Prabhupada was always encouraging and empowering others. So if we want to, in a positive way, get rid of envy from our hearts, look around at all the other devotees in the community and be empowering, be encouraging. When they do well, appreciate them. When they're struggling, reassure them that they can come out of it. Don't wait till someone comes to you when they're you go out and be more encouraging, be that empowering personality, and by that positive movement, by that positive contribution, immediately enviousness will disappear. See, enviousness happens because of this pritak bhav. We're not only seeing that we're separate from Krishna, but we're seeing that we're separate from others. But the moment you're encouraging and empowering, you become part of their life. And therefore you also become part of their success. And now it's not them and me. There's no division. No, we're all in it together. And your success is my success. And this leads on to the second point, that we overcome Matsarya, enviousness, when we realize in spiritual life there's no competition. The material world taught us that if someone else is doing well, then that means I'm losing out. If someone else earned money, that's money I could have had. And therefore, I feel envy when someone else is doing better. But the spiritual world, the equations are completely different, because in spiritual world, everyone shares in everyone else's success. So if the devotees are doing well, you're also doing well. Their devotion is lifting you. And in that way, we don't see ourselves as separate, you see. Oftentimes, there's this phenomena called the phenomena of the frogs in the well. And the phenomena of the frogs in the well, I've never seen it myself, I just heard of it. that basically all these frogs are stuck in this well, and the amazing thing is each of them have the ability to jump out. But as soon as one jumps or makes an endeavor, the other one jumps just as high and brings it down. And when another one jumps up, another one brings it down. When actually, because the other one is thinking, oh no, I don't want to be here alone. But the amazing thing is they all have the potency to get out. But when one is jumping high, the other one thinks, no, I will be left behind, bring him down. But they can all get out. If you let devotees shine, if you let devotees be the best they can be, if we're actually genuinely happy when others are flourishing, this is real bhakti. Srila Prabhupada said to one of his disciples, I had 5,000 disciples, you should have 10,000. That was so empowering. You see, they say the difference between a good leader and a great leader is when you go in a room with a good leader, you come out of the room thinking that person was a genius. But when you go in a room with a great leader and you come out, you think that person was a genius and maybe I also could become a genius. Because that's a great leader. It's not that they're just amazing in their own spiritual life, but they give us the empowerment, the encouragement that we can also do it. So the more devotees in your life that you are empowering and encouraging, that will be the antidote to envy. Envy will disappear. We won't be able to get rid of envy just by thinking ourselves out of it. We will act ourselves out of it by being very positive and loving. Understanding that we don't need to compare with others. Enviousness also comes because of this constant mentality to compare with others. But everyone's on their own journey. So don't try and copy someone else. That's the root of envy. Just like imagine you're in an exam and you think like the cleverest student is next to me, so must be Krishna's arrangement. I'll just look and I'll just copy them. So somehow in the exam hall you think, I'll just copy them. This is all great opportunity. And you copy exactly their answer paper. Exactly, you copy it. And you think, that's it, I aced the exam. But then when you come out of the exam, you realize everyone had a different question paper. Imagine that. So if you try to copy everyone, you're going to be a failure because everyone was born an original. So you're not meant to die a copy of someone else. You have to be yourself. So everyone has a unique thing to bring, and enviousness often comes when we compare ourselves with others. And so the first thing we're looking at is this Matsarya Bhakti, or this so-called devotion, which is mixed with enviousness. If we can get rid of that, it's so liberating. Enviousness is such a heavy, heavy burden on the shoulders, because constantly it's bringing inferiority complex, constantly it's bringing insecurity, and that's not nice. So this is the first aspect of devotion in the mode of ignorance. Then the second aspect of devotion in ignorance is dambam, pride. Pride. Daksha was so proud. He had an inflated conception of himself. One of our teachers actually, he used to have a mantra, and it was so good, I put it on my locker. I had it on my locker for many years. He said, if you're proud, you can't last, you can't learn, and you can't love. Right? This is the effect of pride. First thing is, if you're proud, you can't last, because proud people will commit offenses. And if we commit offenses, then Krishna will remove us. But if somehow or other, even if you manage to stay, proud people can't learn, because they always think they know it all. Therefore, full of it. No room for anything else to go in. And then the devotee said, but if somehow or other you manage to last and you manage to learn so many things despite your pride, the ultimate thing is you'll never be able to really love. Because to love someone means you have to be selfless. And to be selfless, it means you have to stop thinking about yourself. But how can you if you're proud? So this devotee would always talk about this, overcome pride, overcome pride. One of the difficulties of a proud person is that there's no one to tell them. There's no one to tell them where they're going wrong. If in our life we create an energy around ourselves where no one feels comfortable to come and give us feedback, that's a real problem. What was Ram doing in his kingdom? He was sending out spies to do what? Remember what Ram was doing? He was sending out spies to find out what are people saying about me. I want to know so that I can get that information and I can improve. When was the last time any of us send out spies to find out what are people? And not just send out spies to get information so you can defend yourself. No, but to find out genuinely, how can I then improve? Just see how a person, if they want to overcome pride, one of the main things is have people in your life who are giving you feedback. When was the last time someone gave me genuine feedback of how I can improve? How many people genuinely can open their heart to me and say, Mataji, Prabhu, I think you're doing this wrong? Do we have those relationships? Do we have those loving connections? They say feedback is the breakfast of champions. Feedback, very, very important. Feedback also, very, very difficult, I know. Bitter pill. But it's very good. We need to take feedback. We need to know, because oftentimes we are making mistakes, and therefore having this ability to take feedback, this helps us to overcome our own pride. And then share your talents. I've just put these points down, I don't have time to analyze it, but if you actually look at Daksha and look at this whole pastime, all these points are actually derived from there, but I can't keep connecting it to the story because we're short of time. But basically, another way to overcome pride is if you have talents. If Krishna's given you things, you have to share it. Yamuna Mataji, she was like the best cook. Like the best cook. She was the best at many things actually. Somehow the Krishna empowered her in so many divine ways. But once Srila Prabhupada came to her and said, you have to teach others to cook. Because if you don't, you'll become proud. You have to share your talents. You have to share whatever Krishna has given you. Otherwise, a sense of superiority, a sense of... That's why teaching is such a beautiful thing. Because when you've been given something and you give it to others, it becomes very, very beautiful. And then you see them also flourish. That's very nice. Because then you realize, oh, even they could do it. I'm not that special. Even they could do it. That's very nice. So we must share. Actually, the root of bhakti, the root is bhaj, and bhaj actually means, one of the meanings is to share. So one of the etymological root meanings of the word bhakti is to share. You must always share. Bhakti can never be just holding it to yourself. It must be shared. And to overcome pride, we must constantly look for mercy and lessons. We must constantly be in the mood of a learner. Pride means I stop learning. The moment you stop learning is the moment spiritual life is dead. That you can't. Even Srila Prabhupada was reading his own books. I always found that a fascinating point. Srila Prabhupada said, even I read my own books. Krishna dictated them. There's so much to learn. There's so much to grasp. In the beginning of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, in the story where Narad Muni is trying to find out who got the most mercy from Krishna, he makes a prayer right at the beginning of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and his prayer is he says, "May I in my heart always feel that I have not received enough mercy. I need more mercy." We need to be greedy for more mercy, more learning, more fine-tuning of our devotion. And if we take these positive steps, see what I'm doing here is, sometimes we see all the negative things and we just try to, there's anartha nivritti, which is getting rid of the negative things, and there's artha pravritti, which is developing the positive things. So sometimes rather than focusing on just trying to deny the negative, what we do is we counteract it by doing the positive. If we make these things part of our devotional service, pride will disappear. There's no doubt about it. It will happen. And then the final aspect of devotional service in the mode of ignorance is himsa. Daksha killed or tried to kill Shiva by his words first, and then later on was also arranging by the curses that he be harmed. So we should also see, violence, we can be violent, is such a scary thing that actually in the process of doing devotional service, we could actually be violent towards others. That's very, very scary. One of the ways in which we can be violent towards others is if we damage people's faith. In the process of you doing your devotional service, or we doing our devotional service, if we conduct ourselves in such a way that other people begin to lose faith in the process of devotional service, that is actually a big violence. If we disinspire, disenthuse people, and we impede their progressive journey, that is actually violence. Therefore, the way we carry ourselves, they say devotees can create the biggest amount of faith, and devotees can also create the biggest amount of doubt as well. Both can happen. Therefore, we should always be very, very careful. We should always think in every interaction, how can I conduct myself in such a way that this person will feel more enthused to put their faith in the practice of Krishna consciousness? If we walk away from an interaction and someone's faith has been damaged, that is dangerous. And therefore, the next thing is we have to be careful. One of the main things we have to be careful of in spiritual life is speech. Like this is like promoted in so many pastimes, and even Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyaya bhyasanam cheva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Actually, probably the most common form of violence amongst devotee circles is speech. That's one of the most common forms of violence. Krishna says, Satyam, you have to speak truthful. But not just that, Priyam, it's got to be spoken in a nice way. And not just that, Hitam, you got it in your heart when you say something, it must come from a place of genuinely desiring to benefit that person. In other words, you have to get the message right, you have to get the manner right, and you have to get the mood right. If our speech, the message is not correct, the manner is not correct, or the mood is not correct, then this can really create a lot of harm. We see this in the sacrificial arena of Daksha. Everyone just started speaking without thinking. So, Socrates, he says, fools speak because they have to say something. Wise people speak because they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. So half the time we just say things, speak things, not thinking What is the message? What is the manner? What is the mood? Therefore, Swarup Damodar, when he came back from Mahaprabhu to give Raghunath Das Goswami instructions on how to conduct himself in Vrindavan, then he told him, Gramya katha na shunibe, Gramya katha na kohibe, bhalana khaibe ar bhalana paribe. That don't just talk useless things and don't hear useless things. There's a famous story actually of Arjun and Yudhishthira, and once they were having an argument, and then Yudhishthira somehow he became very disturbed, and he said, "You just put your Gandiva bow down." And as soon as he said that, everyone stopped, because Arjun had made a vow: if anyone ever tells me to put my Gandiva bow down, I kill them. So Yudhishthira had told him in that moment, put your Gandiva. He said, I have to kill you now. So, I mean, Kshatriya vow means Kshatriya vow. It doesn't matter who it is. You know, the mountains may move, the sun may stop shining, it doesn't matter, but I've got to follow my vow. So just then Krishna said, no, it's okay. Krishna said, look, you have to kill him, you have to follow your vow. But do you know that there's different ways to kill someone? So, if you just criticize him, if you just blaspheme him, just go all out, then you killed him. So right there Arjun said, okay, good idea. So then Arjun just went all out. You did this, and you should have, done this to the Kauravas, and you didn't protect, and he just so much. And after the whole thing, he thought, oh my God. Krishna said, yeah, you definitely killed him. Stop now. So Arjun said, oh my God, I killed him. Then Arjun was thinking, oh my God, I'm so bad, I offended, I just, how could I just say all of those things? Arjun says, there's no other recourse, I just have to kill myself now. Krishna's like, oh no, who will kill? I'm trying to keep all these guys alive, And then Krishna said to Arjun, no, don't worry, there's ways in which you can also kill yourself. Really? How do you kill yourself? Krishna said, you kill yourself by praising yourself. I did this, and I did that, and you know how much I've offered. So Arjun started praising himself. Krishna said, yeah, now you kill yourself. So criticizing others means you kill them. Praising yourself means you kill yourself. Speech is so powerful. So in this age, it's the age of quarrel. So we have to be very, very careful. Because from this speech, most of the offenses are coming. And then Himsam also can be counteracted in a positive way by always being caring for the devotees. Often in a community, we can look around and we know basically who's going through a hard time. Basically we know. But then how many of us actively go and try and help? See, we should not wait till someone comes to us and asks for help. We should reach out. Because if you do that, then that care, that compassion, that will remove all sense of violence towards anyone. Therefore, it's very interesting, sometimes you see this picture of Krishna and Sudama, and they've gone to get the firewood for Sandipani Muni. And then there's the storm breaks out, and then they're with each other. And it's said actually in that there's a very famous picture, and what it is that in one hand, they're holding the firewood, both of them, and in the other hand, they're holding each other's hand. And the acharyas, they say, this is our Vaishnav line. In one hand, we hold the order of the Guru, the service, the things we're meant to achieve to please our teachers. But then in the other hand, we hold each other, we care for each other, we look out for each other. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada was the ideal example of that. Even though he was an acharya, he was so busy, he was so inundated, always caring, always kind, always looking out for the devotees. So these are some of the positive ways in which we can counteract the tendencies of devotional service in the mode of ignorance. Because otherwise, if we don't, then this matsarya, this envy, this dambam, this pride, and this himsam, this violence, it begins to enter into our consciousness insidiously, and it blocks the flow of bhakti like that. So, okay, I'm looking at the time and it's already 8 o'clock. So I guess we don't want to be mode of passion and go into devotional service in the mode of passion and finish it in 2 minutes. That will be mode of passion. So I think we'll just stop there and see whether anyone may have any questions or corrections or just anything you would like more information on. So just to take you back, this is basically what we discussed: devotional service in the mode of ignorance, daksha's pastime, and how some of these traits can also enter into us. Yes, so does anyone have any question they would like to ask? Or yes, please. There's a mic coming, you can take that.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
This is regarding prasadam. When we are told not to take more, does that come in the mode of ignorance?
When we're told not to take more prasadam, does that come in the mode of ignorance? Not mode of ignorance. I think maybe passion means, excessive, over-endeavoring or excessive consumption of anything or excessive acquisition of something comes generally under the mode of passion. Of course, in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada was just feeding the devotees and he just said, just eat and eat and eat, isn't it? In 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada saw in the middle of the class, sometimes it was like half the people had ducked out of the class. It was like, where are they? And then he realized later on there was an ice cream shop, or donut shop, sorry. A donut shop two doors down, and some of them had just nipped out, during the Bhagavatam class for a donut back in time for the feast. So then Srila Prabhupada said, okay, no problem. Then we will keep a jar of gulab jamuns. And anytime anyone is hungry, then they can just take one. And these will be ISKCON bullets. So in the beginning, Prabhupada was just feeding and saying, just eat, just eat, just eat. So in the beginning, prasadam, yes, we take. Prabhupada said, take till you wobble like a duck. But then later on, yes, we are controlling. Vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam, udarapasto vegam. Because the tongue, the belly, and the genitals are all in one line. So if you control the tongue, then naturally everything else becomes controlled. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada later on told the devotees, yes, I was feeding you, but the mantra is, don't live to eat. Eat to live. Right? So, yes, in the beginning we may, but then later on some control must come in. Because then Rupa Goswami also says, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangas chalolyam cha sadbhir bhakti vinashyati. Your bhakti can be harmed, atyahara, by excessive consumption. I hope that's okay. Yes.
So Maharaj, Daksha judged Lord Shiva based on his appearance. I find myself doing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone walks into the temple, we look how he appears, the way he dresses, blah, 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 and then we know how to deal with that person. So how not to do that, like to look into the appearance of someone?
One thing that I always found in the Hare Krishna movement strange is that sometimes we can be together for so many years and not have one conversation with each other. Once I was living in the Brahmachari ashram, I lived across the door from one devotee, and in 20 years, I think I never had a longer conversation than maybe 15 seconds with him. I think, like, how is this possible? Sometimes devotees come for Mangalarti, they come from the congregation, they come like every week, and after like 15 years I find myself going up to someone like, yes, bro, what's your name? Like, after 15 years, we don't even speak. It's such an impersonal world we live in. I think one of the main problems is that we don't speak to people. We don't communicate. Community means communication. We become so, we cut ourselves off, we live in a bubble, but why are we in Vaishnava Sangha? So that we can share, so that we can serve, so that we can exchange. Someone say, well, I don't want to get involved. As soon as I start speaking to others, I get into arguments and problems, or better I just keep to myself. Okay, but maybe you may not also, you lose out on many gifts, and maybe in your mind also create many offenses by not communicating. So I think in our movement we should be more personal, I feel. That's my observation. Maybe in Nairobi it's different. But in my observation of wherever I've gone, and I'm culprit number one, we are not personal enough with others. Like Srila Prabhupada was so personal. He didn't preach Krishna consciousness from a Vyasasana. He was living with the hippies, and he was sharing apartments with them. He was personal. He was giving his time. Can you imagine a 70-year-old sadhu, Mahabhagava, coming straight from Vrindavan, living with an 18-year-old drug addict from the Lower East Side of New York? But Prabhupada just came down because he knew this is a personal movement. I'm not going to spread Krishna consciousness just by giving lectures of Abhyasasana. So I think we have to be more personal. I think then the communities become... because it just often... I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of Vipassana? Okay, so Vipassana is like a Buddhist meditation. So it's famous in the Western world, maybe not in Nairobi. But in the Western world, Vipassana is very famous. People go for 10 days to this Buddhist retreat. And you know what they do for 10 days, right? Mauna Vrat. They can't speak. So once I met this person on book distribution, he was very interested. He said, yeah, I just came from a Vipassana retreat. So I said, oh wow. I said, what did you do? He said, for 10 days, we couldn't say a word. So I said, what was your realization? He said, I realized something, it just blew my mind. I said, what? He said, we turned up at this retreat and there were 60 of us. So now imagine, you're in a room with 60 people, but you're not allowed to speak to them. So you end up in this place with 60 people who you've never met before, but you're not allowed to speak to them for 10 days. And he said, at the end of the 10 days, what happened is they let us, then the Mauna Vrat broke and we started speaking. And he said, it blew my mind. Because he said, each one of these people who I had just observed, I had made a picture in my mind of who they are. And when I spoke to each one of them, within the matter of 2 or 3 minutes, I realized this person is completely different. And then the person said, I realize how much in my life I judge people. So that I thought was an interesting observation. That if we don't communicate, if we don't seek to understand someone, where they're coming from, then we will place a lot of judgment. So we must be... our basic feeling should be that anyone who comes to this movement is special. Yes, they come with baggage. We also came with baggage. Yes, they come with weaknesses. We also have many weaknesses. But basically, that was Srila Prabhupada's mood, that everyone who's come has some sincerity. So let me find that and fan the spark. That was Prabhupada's approach. So I guess just one thing that immediately comes to mind when you say that, and there could be many other things, it's a beautiful question, but let us communicate and talk more. Something. Kamita and go up here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the inspiring words. Here, one of these words, Samrabhi,
Samrambhi, yes. This means anger.
is anger is the word chosen to mean anger is Samrabhi, but in other verses in the Vedas or in the scriptures, the word Krodha is used. Is it because these two words have different moods of anger, or what could be there?
Yeah, that's generally how it is. I haven't looked into the etymology of Samrambhi, but yes, sometimes various Sanskrit words are used. I can do that research and find out. But yes, different Sanskrit words are used to give nuances. That's why Sanskrit is such a beautiful language. Like, did you know in Sanskrit, do you know how many words there are for love in Sanskrit? Over 70 words for love in the Sanskrit language. Depends on what kind of love. Motherly love, romantic love. There's so many different types of love. So even friend, for example, in English we say, he's my friend. But then in Sanskrit there is no, is he your Sakha, or is he your Bandhu, or is he your Surit, or is he your Mitra? Mitra means, okay, some formal friend. Surit means someone who's well-wisher in your heart. So Bandhu means someone who's always there even when you have problems. So different words have a different sense. So yeah, I'm not quite sure about Samrambhi. I'll look into it for you. Thank you. Maybe last question and then.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, is it safe to say that when anyone starts bhakti, or if anyone is in the first stages of bhakti, they are in bhakti with ignorance, or there is even a stage below ignorance?
Is there a stage even below ignorance? Perhaps we could say bhakti which is not according to the rules and regulations of Shastra. Because Daksha, although he was devotional service in the mode of ignorance, still what he was doing was according to Shastra. But Srila Prabhupada often quoted this verse, Shruti Shmriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidim Vina Ekantiki Harer Bhakti Utpata Yeva Kalpate. That if you practice but you don't reference the Shruti, the Shmriti, the Puranas or the Pancharatra in how you're actually doing your devotion, then is considered maybe even lower than ignorance because it's in violation of Shastra. So, perhaps we could say, in that sense, that devotional service in this sense begins from when you're actually following what Shastra is saying to do, at least externally, but the inner bhav may not be completely correct.
So neophyte stage is from ignorance.
Yeah, because we are serving Anukulyena Krishnanu, we're serving Krishna favorably according to scripture. So that's really where it begins from. Purification begins from when we perform devotional service in line with Shastra. And devotional service in the mode of ignorance can also be in line with Shastra, but the inner bhav is not there, but at least the action is there, and therefore even someone may be proud, someone may have streaks of envy, still they're practicing and they're getting some benefit. But remember, it's not a steady platform, therefore we're addressing these points for us to be conscious. Because if we continually do this, remember, a proud person can't last. So it's an unsteady platform, because from here we can damage our spiritual journey like that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Last question. Rogers, you had a question?
Hare Krishna. So the point about praising yourself and like mocking the others or criticizing, okay, I may agree that criticizing others kind of seems like killing them, but praising myself doesn't feel like I'm killing myself. It feels more like I'm dominating or I'm creating space for myself so that others cannot trample over me. So I may not promise that I'll be thinking what I'll be saying to others. So if I end up thinking about every word that I'm going to speak, I may end up not speaking for a whole day. That's what we do. So how do we like come to the platform where maybe it comes out naturally, like what you say is not like gonna kill yourself or kill
Yeah, it doesn't literally mean kill yourself, but it means basically, you know, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that for a Kshatriya, dishonor is worse than death. Right? So for a respectable person, for someone who has some culture, to praise themselves is considered like worse than death. Because it's just considered that, it's just, how to explain it, it's just considered to be very, not very cultured, you know, because we are not trying to draw attention to ourselves. We're trying to draw attention to Krishna. We're trying to draw attention to the Vaishnavas. We're trying to draw attention to other things except from me. So it's not that we don't speak about ourselves, it's not that we don't protect ourselves, but then to artificially, praise means, basically if you want a definition of praise, what praise means is to artificially try to draw attention to yourself. And for a respectable person like Arjuna, that's considered like worse than death. Therefore, we don't try to artificially draw attention to ourselves, but rather we try to genuinely draw attention to the Vaishnavas and Krishna. And that is a better way. I don't know, does that help? Does that address your question? A little bit. You want to say something else? No? Okay. Alright. I see other hands, but I don't know what to do. It's 8:15. Shall we take more questions, or shall we finish? Or I'm easy. Who's in charge? Sri Gauranga, Rukma Prabhu.
Those who are getting late can go.
Yeah, if devotees do need to leave, then please don't feel it is dumb bum or anything like that. Yes, okay, so yes, ma'am.
Is it correct to say that every time somebody starts devotional service, it's always from the mode of ignorance? My question is based on the example of when His Holiness Gaur Govind Maharaj joined the movement, and Prabhupada said, I give him all three initiations at the same time. The other devotees complained that he's just
a new
beginner.
person. Yeah.
And Prabhupada said, no, he's even more advanced than you. So is it correct to say that?
Yeah, we know Krishna says, Neha Vikramanaso Sti Pratyavayana Vidyate, that your advancement is never lost, and from wherever you have progressed to, you carry on from there. So yeah, many devotees and you see that many devotees come into the movement, and for them to be like simple, tolerant, compassionate, it just seems to come so naturally, isn't it? For some devotees, it's so natural, isn't it? To just be like very kind, to not speak bad about anyone. It just comes very naturally. It means that somehow by Krishna's grace in previous lives, they already worked through many of those things. And for some of us, we just find, oh my God, just any little thing, my fault-finding mind just keeps on coming. So yes, we are. But the other thing I want to say, Mataji, is that I made this point that this is complex. So no one should come out of here thinking like, my God, I'm in the mode of ignorance. Because what you'll see is that you also have higher qualities as well. So it's not generally that anyone's... We the basic point of this is that we have tinges of everything. We go through moments of ignorance, flashes of goodness, bouts of passion, and it's always coming in and out. But we want to get to that point. Stitam sattve prasidati. We want to try to be situated on sattva. And from there, vishuddha sattva. And therefore, the only way we can get there is to be aware of these ignorant and passionate mentalities coming in. So, to say even someone starts from here or there, most of us are mixed. We are just Mishra Bhaktas. We are just mixed with many things. So, okay. Krishangi has a question.
What's the difference between pride and self-esteem?
Self-esteem or genuine sense of self-worth in a spiritual way is based on me knowing Krishna's greatness and my relationship to him. Pride is basically my sense of confidence on my abilities divorced from Krishna. So for example, a devotee can be the most self-confident because they know Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Krishna is amazing. Krishna is the master of all mystics, and because I'm connected to him, I can do anything. Therefore Prabhupada could come. That was bold, that was confident, that was a real sense of self-esteem. Prabhupada said, one time they asked Prabhupada, how are you so confident to challenge all these scientists, theologians, philosophers who are proposing atheistic doctrines? Prabhupada said, how can I believe them when they say Krishna doesn't exist when I'm seeing Krishna every day? So when you're seeing Krishna, then you have a confidence. It's like, I may be a fool, I may be this or that, but Krishna, I'm on Krishna's side. Therefore, Tatra, Shrir, Vijayo, Bhutir, Tatra, wherever there is Krishna, there will always be victory. But when you're proud, it's like, yeah, I'm good. Like Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest. And then later on you realize, no, I'm not the greatest. Because what are my abilities? They can fall anytime. So pride is an inflated, artificial sense of one's greatness based on their estimation of their abilities. But real esteem and confidence comes from being Krishna confident. Yeah. I hope that helps. Okay, one last question at the back, and then we'll stop there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, sorry.
No worries. Just your servant.
Maharaj.
I'm also getting used to it.
Maharaj, anger in psychology is termed as boundary defensive, or let's say it is used for setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries?
Yeah, setting boundaries. Like for example, there are people who don't know when to stop. They keep on hurting you or they keep on stepping on your boundaries. So, according to psychology, anger is termed as a defense to create boundary. So, how should it be asserted? Because sometimes when you tell people, just stop in a good way, they won't stop. But when you assert anger, they will stop. So, how do you determine it in the mode of passion, in the mode of goodness, and in the mode of ignorance?
Yeah, it's a very good point. We have to set boundaries in our life, otherwise we also put ourselves in a situation where we're going to end up feeling more angry, more bitter, more hurt, and more disturbed. So we have to set some boundaries. But my sense of advice, or from what we can hear of Shastra, is try not to get it to the point where you have to set a boundary from anger. Like, try to be more proactive in how you frame a relationship with someone, so that it doesn't have to come to that point where you have to establish boundaries through anger. There are other ways to set boundaries in relationships of respect. And when you find that someone is, it doesn't have to be that point where someone is overstepping the boundary. As you see they are coming closer to the boundary, before it gets to that point, we can address it more in the mode of goodness. So mode of passion means, or mode of ignorance means, we wait till the thing is completely unbearable and then we do something. This is what modern medicine does. Until you get the disease, just carry on enjoying, and then once the disease comes, then we'll try and work it out. No, that's silly. Rather, you should be proactive. That's mode of goodness. So when we relate to people in an appropriate way and we set proper boundaries, then before it comes to that point. So ideally we want to avoid anger, because it's bringing in a lot of other things in our consciousness which are not beneficial. Does that help? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. There are more questions, but I think we'll stop there and we'll continue tomorrow with devotional service in the mode of passion. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaja ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki